Seahawks Nation update. The crossroads nobody saw coming. Wake up, because what we're about to talk about could literally reshape the next half-decade of Seattle Seahawks football. No exaggeration, no clickbait, just real talk. We just came off the greatest high this city has felt in years, a Super Bowl championship. Confetti, champagne, the whole thing. And now, before the parade floats are even back in storage, the front office is staring down some of the toughest decisions they've ever had to make. We're potentially waving goodbye to our Super Bowl MVP. And in the same breath, we might be swinging for the fences on one of the most terrifying defensive players walking the planet right now. This isn't just roster shuffling, folks. This is dynasty architecture. Let's get into it. The backfield situation. Do we really let the MVP walk? Let's set the scene first. Kenneth Walker didn't just have a solid year. The man put on a show. During the 2025 regular season, he racked up touchdowns and kept defenses guessing every single week. Then the Super Bowl came around and he absolutely went off. 135 rushing yards, 26 receiving yards, and a dominant performance in a 29-13 demolition of the New England Patriots. That's the kind of game you show your grandkids one day. And yet, here we are, talking about possibly replacing him. Walker's projected market value sits somewhere around $36 million over 4 years. That's real money, even for a team sitting as comfortably as Seattle is under the cap. And the name being thrown around as a potential replacement? Najee Harris, former Pittsburgh Steelers Pro Bowler and one of the most productive running backs of his generation. Now before you close the tab, hear me out. Harris came into the league like a freight train. His rookie season with Pittsburgh in 2021 was flat out ridiculous. Over 1,200 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns, 74 catches out of the backfield, and a league-leading 381 total touches. As a rookie, the man was built for volume, and he delivered it every single year in Pittsburgh, 4 consecutive seasons with 1,000+ rushing yards, and not a single missed game. That's not just production, that's reliability you can build around. But then 2025 happened, and things got messy. After signing with the LA Chargers, Harris suffered a brutal Achilles tear in just week 3 of the season. Just like that, his year was over before it ever really started. And now, his projected market value has dropped all the way down to a 1-year deal under $3 million. Let that number marinate for a second. Walker, $36 million over 4 years. Harris under $3 million for 1. That's not just a price difference. That's a completely different philosophy about how you build a football team. Here's the honest breakdown, though. Analysts will tell you Harris is actually the better pass catcher of the two. He's comfortable in a committee backfield. He's only 27 years old, and for most of his career he's been one of the most durable backs in the league. The Achilles injury is the elephant in the room, and it's a big one. We've seen careers change overnight after that kind of damage. The explosiveness you once had can just disappear. And Harris was never really a make-you-miss in open space type of runner to begin with. He was power and volume, not flash and burn. Walker, on the other hand, can flip the entire momentum of a game with 1 carry. That breakaway speed is rare. That's the kind of thing you can't just plug in with a budget replacement. So here's the real question. Do you pay premium for elite explosiveness coming off a Super Bowl MVP performance? Or do you play it smart with the cap? Grab Harris on a prove-it deal, rotate him with Zach Charbonnet, and redirect those millions somewhere that might matter even more. My honest take, if Walker's willing to negotiate something team-friendly, you run it back with your MVP. Championship windows are fragile, continuity is underrated. But if he's dead set on top dollar, the Harris option isn't crazy, not even close. A hungry, motivated Najee Harris running behind Seattle's offensive line on a 1-year contract could be a genuinely dangerous weapon. Sometimes the underdog move is the right move. The defensive bombshell. Should Seattle go get Maxx Crosby? Okay, deep breath, because this is where things get really spicy. There's a trade proposal floating around that would send 2 first-round picks plus young edge rusher Derek Hall to the Las Vegas Raiders in exchange for Maxx Crosby, a 5-time Pro Bowler, a walking highlight reel, and arguably a top 3 edge rusher in football today. If you're not familiar with Crosby, let me paint the picture. This is a guy who logged 10 sacks and 20 quarterback hits in just 15 games last season. He has nearly 70 career sacks, a non-stop motor that makes offensive linemen lose sleep, and legitimate Hall of Fame trajectory if he keeps this up. He doesn't take plays off. He doesn't vanish in big moments. He lives in the backfield and makes quarterbacks' lives absolutely miserable. Now here's the thing about Seattle's pass rush last year. It was good. Really good, actually. The Seahawks finished with 47 team sacks and ranked in the top 6 in pressure rate under Mike Macdonald. That's impressive. But, and this is a big but, not a single Seahawk hit double-digit sacks. Not one. The production was spread out, which is great for depth, but it means there's no true closer. No guy that offensive coordinators have to game plan around specifically. Now imagine adding Crosby to that mix. Picture him lining up across from Seattle's young defensive studs paired inside with Leonard Williams. Crosby demands double teams by himself, which means everyone else on that line gets one-on-one matchups. You're not just pressuring quarterbacks anymore, you're suffocating them. You're winning playoff games in the trenches before the skill positions even break a sweat. That's what an elite pass rusher does to a defense that's already solid. It takes you from really good to genuinely unfair. But let's be honest about the cost, because 2 first-round picks is not pocket change. Seattle currently has just 4 draft picks in 2026, giving up 2 of them, plus Hall, who at 24 years old is showing real breakout potential with 41 pressures and a solid PFF grade last season, is a massive commitment. That's cheap young talent walking out the door. That's futures being traded for the present. Some fans will say it's too much, and I get it. But here's the counter-argument, and I believe it deeply. Windows close. We've watched enough NFL history to know that Super Bowl champions who stand pat, who play it safe, who say we'll just reload through the draft, they don't always get back to the top. The teams that sustain greatness are the ones willing to be aggressive when the moment calls for it. Players like Maxx Crosby don't just show up on the trade market every offseason. When a guy like that becomes available, half the league is already making calls. The difference is Seattle has over $73 million in cap space, 6th most in the entire NFL. We're one of the few teams that can actually absorb a deal like this without gutting the rest of the roster. That's a real advantage, and it would be a shame to waste it being timid. If the Raiders are truly listening, and if reports of Crosby being open to a move are accurate, you pick up the phone, you make the offer. And yeah, you might be drafting late for the next couple years because this team keeps winning, but I'll take that problem any day of the week. So what's the move, Seattle? Here's where it all comes together. 12s. 3 paths are sitting in front of John Schneider right now. Option 1. Save money at running back, let Walker walk, sign Harris cheap, and use that cap flexibility to go get Crosby. You're building a defense-first dynasty with elite talent on both sides of the ball. Option 2. Keep Walker, maintain offensive continuity, and pass on the Crosby trade. You trust the core that just won you a championship, and let the young guys develop. Option 3. Go all in. Keep Walker and make the Crosby trade. Push every chip to the center of the table and dare the rest of the league to keep up. It's aggressive, it's risky, and honestly, it might be exactly the kind of bold thinking that separates good teams from legendary ones. This isn't just roster management. This is the moment that will define whether the 2025 Seahawks become a footnote or a dynasty. We just won the Super Bowl. We made history on the biggest stage in sports. The question now isn't whether we're good enough. We proved that. The question is whether we're hungry enough to go back and do it again. Drop your takes in the comments. Would you pay Walker, roll the dice on Harris, or blow the whole thing up and go get Crosby? I genuinely want to know what the 12s think, because this fan base has never been short on opinions, and that's exactly why this community is special. Let's make sure they're nervous. Go Hawks. The hard truths behind Seattle's championship defense. Winning the Super Bowl is one thing. Staying on top? That's a whole different beast. The confetti has long settled in Seattle, but behind those closed front office doors, some genuinely uncomfortable conversations are happening right now. And honestly, these discussions might end up being more impactful than anything that went down on the field during the championship run. Because the NFL doesn't let you coast. The moment you pop the champagne, the clock starts ticking on what comes next. 2 storylines in particular are picking up serious steam, and both of them are the kind that make fan bases deeply uncomfortable. We're talking about a potential cut of a major offensive name, and the very real possibility of watching a quality pass rusher bolt to an NFC rival. Painful stuff. But before you panic, understand this. There's a cold, calculated logic underneath all of it, and once you see it clearly, the whole picture looks very different. Let's dig in. The Cooper Kupp question. Loyalty versus logic. This is the one splitting the fan base right down the middle, and I completely understand why. Kupp was part of the Super Bowl 60 run. He's a beloved veteran. He's the kind of guy you want in your locker room. So the idea of cutting him feels almost disrespectful, like you're throwing away someone who helped you get to the mountaintop. But feelings don't pay salaries. And when you actually look at the numbers, the conversation stops being emotional real fast. Kupp finished the 2025 regular season with 593 receiving yards and just 2 touchdowns. For most guys, that's a decent year. For a player who was once the most dominant wide receiver in football, a guy who had one of the most historic single seasons the position has ever seen during his prime with the LA Rams, that's a meaningful step back. And it's not just the counting stats raising eyebrows. The advanced numbers are telling the same story. His yards per route run dropped to 1.39, one of the lowest marks of his career. His target share shrunk. His influence on the offense, play by play, just isn't what it used to be. At 32 years old, that trajectory isn't likely to reverse itself. Now layer in the contract situation and it gets even thornier. Kupp carries a $17.5 million cap hit for next season, plus a $9 million guarantee that kicks in this February. If Seattle moves on before that guarantee triggers, they free up close to $10 million in immediate cap space. And with Kenneth Walker and Rick Woolen both trending toward extension conversations, That money isn't just sitting there for fun, it's needed. Desperately. The front office isn't thinking about next September. They're thinking about a 3 to 4 year competitive window and making sure every dollar is doing real work. That's the mindset of an organization that wants to sustain excellence, not just stumble into it once. And here's the thing. The offensive infrastructure is already shifting underneath Kupp anyway. Jackson Smith-Njigba has emerged as a legitimate weapon. Torrey Horton is developing fast and bringing the kind of youth and burst that a modern passing offense craves. The receiving core doesn't look barren without Kupp. It looks like it's evolving right on schedule. Is it cold? Absolutely. Is it fair to a guy who just earned a ring? Debatable. But these are exactly the kinds of hard calls that separate franchises that win once from organizations that build something genuinely sustained. Kupp's legacy in Seattle is secure regardless. The question is whether his contract serves the roster going forward, and the honest answer is probably not. Boye Mafe and the Philadelphia problem. Now let's cross to the other side of the ball, because this storyline is just as layered and honestly doesn't get the nuanced discussion it deserves. There's a growing possibility that edge rusher Boye Mafe could land with the Philadelphia Eagles this offseason. And losing an athletic pass rusher in the physical prime of his career, he's 28 years old, is never something you celebrate. But before you spiral, let's actually look at what the numbers say, because sack totals don't tell the full story here. On paper, Mayfie's 2025 season looks underwhelming, just 2 sacks. And if that's all you look at, sure you'd wonder what the fuss is about. But zoom out and the picture gets more interesting. He generated 33 pressures across the season. His pass rush win rate sat at 18.7%, which ranked 8th among all edge defenders in the entire league. His pressure rate was 11.4%. That's consistent. Real disruption even when the quarterback manages to get the ball out before contact. Here's what casual fans consistently miss about pass rushers. It's not always about the sack. A quarterback who's being hurried, who feels a hand in his face, who has to speed up his reads because someone's getting through, that changes entire offensive game plans. That's Mayfie's value, even in a season where the scoreboard didn't fully reflect it. But there's a structural reality here that can't be ignored. Mayfie's snap count dropped significantly in 2025. He played just 50% of defensive snaps, his lowest share since 2022. After Week 5, he was no longer playing starter-level reps consistently. And that doesn't happen by accident. With DeMarcus Lawrence, Uchenna Nwosu, and Derek Hall all under contract, plus Leonard Williams coming back in 2026, Seattle's defensive line is genuinely deep. Not just serviceable, legitimately crowded with talent. Mayfie's projected market value, roughly $36.7 million over 3 years. That's a serious investment for a player who wasn't logging starter snaps on a weekly basis. From a pure roster construction standpoint, you can absolutely understand why Seattle might let the market take him, and why some other team, like Philadelphia, might be thrilled to offer him that kind of deal. Will it sting if he leaves? Of course. You always hate seeing a guy you developed go help a rival. But Mike Macdonald's defense isn't built around any single piece. It's built on rotation, versatility, and relentless collective pressure. Losing Mafe doesn't gut the system. It just opens a door for the next guy to step through. The moves nobody's talking about, but should be. Here's where I want to give the front office some real credit. Because while everyone's debating the big names and the big dollars, Seattle quietly made a couple of low-key moves that reveal exactly what kind of organization this is. The Seahawks secured exclusive rights to both running back George Fant and safety Ty Okada. Now I know that doesn't sound as exciting as a blockbuster trade or a splashy free agent signing. But hear me out, because this is genuinely how sustained championship rosters are built from the inside out. Okada stepped into the starting lineup at free safety in Week 3 when Julian Love went down. He didn't just survive the role, he thrived in it. By the end of the season, he'd accumulated 65 total tackles, 46 solo stops, 6 passes defended, and 3 tackles for loss across 17 games, starting 11 of them. He even slid over to strong safety to fill in when needed. That kind of scheme versatility is invaluable to a coaching staff that demands adaptability from every player on the field.